Hi everyone. Hi, good morning. Hi Sonal. Hi Marcus. Hi Tofi. Hi Bhavesh. Akhil, Pallavi, Shantanu, Sirisha, Aftab, Surinder, Hem, Temi, Murali, Carlos, Ramesh, Dolly. Okay, hi. Good to see you all. New week. So we will be starting with some new concepts. But before I proceed to the next concept, I will first try to answer one of the assignment questions that I had given in the last class. So in the last class, I think I had given two assignments, right? Yeah. So one of them was, how do you delete duplicate records? So has everyone tried to write a query to delete duplicate records? Okay. Is there anyone who was not able to find the solution? And can you tell me, so just tell me in like one line, which database you used to solve this problem and what concept did you use? Okay, just in one line. Okay, which database hyphen what concept did you use to solve this problem? Okay, so Adam used a self join. Which database did you use? Because I'll just wait for a couple of minutes for others to join. So till then, just let me know whoever has solved the problem, right? How did you solve it? Can we use joins without a referencing table? Can we use joins without referencing table? So Dolly, what do you mean by this question? So can we use joins without so are you saying to use joins without using the on clause, is it? Without mentioning any join condition, is it? Is this what you mean? You guys don't have to paste the query here, but just tell me which database you used and which concept. The reason why I'm asking this is there are many ways to delete duplicate records from a table. Okay, and different databases you may have to use different concepts. Okay, because uh, I will tell you why. Because certain things that we use in a particular database may not work in all the databases. Okay, so that's why I want to know if anyone has any interesting method of solving, because I'm sure there are. I will, I think, show you one, two, three, maybe four different types of deleting this table, or maybe few extra. But you might have some other way of deleting a duplicate record. So if anyone has a different way than what I'm going to be showing you today, I would really like to know. So that's why I'm asking. Okay, so I get some answers here. Postgres outer join. Okay, so Bhavesh says Postgres outer join, MySQL self join. Okay, MySQL self join. In and group by in MS SQL. Okay, fine. CTID. Okay, fine. Uh, the assignment, okay, the problem that we are talking about is how to delete duplicate records from a table. This was one of the assignment that I gave in the last class. Okay, so Shantanu tells MySQL self join. Okay, so I think, mm, okay, so all these methods are fine. So I'm going to show you a solution in all of these methods that you just mentioned here. Okay, okay, so Prashad says he used rank. Okay, that's also fine. Um, okay, so let's start in a minute. I use group by having count of one. Okay. Easiest way is subquery. Oracle using row ID. Okay, fine. So let's start. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know once you're able to see my screen. Okay. 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 So you guys can see the screen, right? Painting dataset has no reference. Oh, okay. So Dolly, if you're talking about painting table as no reference, I think you mean to say that in the painting data set that I have given, there are no constraints. Okay. So constraints are not a mandatory thing, okay? And this data set I have taken just for practice purpose. And there is a reason why I did not have constraints, okay? And the reason why I did not add constraints, you will come to know in today's class, okay? Because I wanted to have duplicate records so that I could give you this assignment, and also I want to explain certain other concepts where if I have constraints, then I will not be able to have such kind of data. Okay, so it's not mandatory to have data sets, but if you're working on a real project, then you need to have constraints. Okay, because you need to have proper valid data, right? This is a data set which is best for me to explain certain concepts. Okay, that's why I have it like this. So let's start. Um, in the last class, first of all, we saw how do you write a query where you can find duplicate records, right? So yeah, so I think let's look at the artist table. So the artist table is having 6 records, and just let me know if this font is big enough. Okay, let me know if I need to zoom in, because I think I restarted my system, and this like my PG admin might have reset. So I'm not sure if this was the same zoom level I was using in the previous class. Just let me know. Please zoom. Okay, so I'll zoom one. Okay, I think this should be good, right? Um, okay, so you can see that I have Kate and Natalie, and I have again Kate and Natalie. So row number 2, 3, and row number 5 and 6. These are the artist names are duplicate, right? Even though the ID is unique, they basically are the same artist because they have the same first name and last name, right? So we can tell that they are duplicate records. And then we came up with this query where I just used a simple group by and having clause to find out only those artists who were duplicated, right? So I got that. Now the next question that I asked was, you have found this, but how do you delete these records? Because this is something that you will be doing all the time in your real project, okay? And this is a very common question in interviews as well. Okay, how do you delete duplicate records? Okay, so I'm going to start with PostgreSQL. Okay, I'm going to give you a solution in PostgreSQL. Unfortunately, I have no idea why my Oracle is, it's basically not connecting. Okay, I'm using this M1 Mac laptop, and I think this Oracle and Microsoft SQL Server is directly not supported in Apple ecosystem. Okay, I need to use Docker and etc. So I'll try to install Docker, and I had it all in my previous laptop, but in this new laptop I have not installed all of that. So I'm not able to connect to Oracle, and I'm not able to connect to Microsoft SQL Server. But I'll still give you the solution for both those RDBMS. And MySQL works fine. So I'll show you how it works in MySQL. Okay. But let's start with PostgreSQL. Okay. Now, so I will see this table. Okay. Now, in PostgreSQL and in Oracle, when you create a table, right? We generally, when we create a table, we need to give the columns that the table needs to have. But internally, the database itself creates some additional tables which is not visible to the end user. Okay, but internally, certain columns are created by the database itself. Okay, this happens in Oracle and this happens in PostgreSQL. I don't think so. This happens, or we have those kind of pseudo columns in MySQL and Microsoft SQL Server. Okay. Now, what I'm talking about is, so let's say I'll call this A. Okay, A dot star, and let's say A dot CTID. Okay. You can see here in my artist table, I only created ID, first name, and last name. Okay, but you see here there is this column that is created. This is basically, we call it like city ID. This is kind of like a unique number, unique ID for each row. Okay, now this is not visible. If I do a select star from artist, you can see here, you cannot see that. Okay, because we did not create it. This is a column city ID which is internally created by the PostgreSQL database. Okay, and why does it create it? Because it this is a column which tracks each unique record. Even if your table was having 1 million records, this number here would be unique for all of those 1 million records. So this is going to be unique every single time. Okay, because we don't create it, or the database itself manages it. Okay, now in PostgreSQL, one of the easiest way to delete duplicate records is by using this column. Okay, so how I can do that is, for example, so you can see here, I have Kate, but and the city ID is 0, comma 2. Now this 0, comma 2, this is basically this is a tuple way of representing a value. Okay, so you don't have to bother about what tuple is and everything. You just think that you can see here 0, comma 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are all unique numbers. Okay. Uh, Now, if I had to delete duplicate records in this table, and I know that data is duplicated based on these two columns, right? So what I can say is I can just say select, okay, and I'll just tell first name, comma last name, comma count of one from artist group by, okay, and then I'll tell having count of 1 greater than 1. Okay, if I execute this, you can see that I'm getting Kate and Natali because I know they were the only ones who basically will have count 2. Why? Because they only they have multiple records in this table, right? And I am not taking ID column here because we can see that the ID is unique. So let's say if I had taken ID here and then I have to put ID in the group by as well. And if I execute, now I'll not get any records because when I take the combination of ID, first name and last name, there is no duplicate. Okay. The duplicate happens only in the name, that is the first name and last name. So, and I am considering that the records where first name and last name are duplicated, the entire record itself is duplicate. Okay. So so I'm only considering first name and last name. And I'm just taking count of one to show you that when I do a group by and having, I'll get that these are having count as two. That means there are two records with this first name and with this last name, and the same thing for this record. Okay. Now, another way of doing this or additional information that I can gather here is something called as CTID. Okay. Now, if I execute CTID, it's going to throw an error because I need to use CTID in the group by clause because this also is a kind of a column. But I don't want to use this CTID in the group by clause because CTID is unique for each record. If I use CTID in the group by clause, then basically I'll not be able to fetch any duplicate record. So, but what I can do is I can put an aggregate function here saying max, okay, and I can put this here and I'll just leave it like that and I'll execute this. And now you can see that the max of CTID that I have got is 0506. Okay. So if you look at my this table here, okay. So I have this Kate and Natali, okay, and you see that the CTID for these two records, okay. So the CTID here is 0203 and here it is 0506. When I took max of CTID for these duplicated records, it's fetching me 0506. Okay. So I'm going to use this to delete the duplicate record. So what I will do is now if I just remove all of this column because I don't need all of the additional columns. I only want to find the unique row ID where these two records were duplicated. Okay. And I'll get that unique row ID from this column CTID. Okay, now when I execute this, you can see I'm getting 0506. Okay, now using this unique row ID, I can delete the duplicate record. So how I can do that is I can put this whole thing into a subquery. So I can just tell select, okay, not select in this case because I want to delete, right? So I can just tell delete from artist where CTID in this whole thing, right? So I can just move this to the right. Okay. And hopefully, because when I execute this inner query here, I'm getting this 5 and 6 because these are the two records where the data is duplicated based on these two columns. Okay. And then I'm putting a delete statement and I'm fetching only those records where the CTID is 5 and 6. So only those two records should get deleted from the artist table. So when I execute this, you can see that it's telling delete 2. So the data is deleted. Okay. Now if I go into my artist table, you can see that I have only 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So the last two records, if I execute here, the last two records with CTID 5 and 6 is now deleted. So this is one way of deleting duplicate records. Okay, and if you are using PostgreSQL, I would say this is one of the pretty good ways of deleting duplicate records. Okay, um, now Is this clear? Any questions about this? Rahul says, can't we use ID in this instead of CTID? In this particular case, you can use ID. Okay, it will still be fine because the ID is unique. Okay, but there can be certain cases where the ID also might be duplicated, or your table might not have an ID itself. Okay, in that case, this is the best way of doing it. Okay, in this particular case, like what Rahul is telling, we can also delete by using ID. Okay, so for example, I'll just this. So instead of CT ID, I'll just say ID. Okay, because we have the ID column in this table, right? So when I run the I just the inner query here, okay, because I deleted duplicate records already. So let me insert the duplicate records again. And now let me run this inner query. And you can see I'm getting 5 and 6 because these are the unique IDs. When I do a delete with ID, it works fine. Okay. In this case, it works fine. But imagine your artist table only had first name and last name, or the IDs are also were also duplicated. In that case, this query would not work. Okay. So I'll just mention it here. This query works if the table already has a unique column, okay, like ID in this case. Okay, uh, this works for all Okay, it does not matter whether there are unique IDs or nothing. If there are duplicate records, this way will work for everything every time. Okay. Uh, is there anyone who is not clear on this? Any confusion? Okay. What if we have all columns are duplicated? Even if there are all columns are duplicated, this will still work, Swati. That's what I explained, right? So, okay. But I'll also give you another scenario when all the columns are duplicated. There is another way of doing it, which I will come at the end. Okay. Count of duplicate records more than two. What if we have count of duplicate records more than two? Then also does not matter, right? So let's say instead of okay, so let's do one thing. Okay, so I have four records here. I'm going to execute this insert two times. Okay, so I executed it multiple times, like two times, and now let me see. Now you can see that I have eight records, and Natali and Kate are duplicated three times. Okay, so now when I run my inner query here, so I'll run this query here. Okay, okay, so I'm getting these two, right? Okay, so this is only fetching. Okay, so good question. Okay, now this is the kind of question if you ask, because I might miss certain scenarios, I can then explain certain other ways. Okay, now can you tell me? Okay, so CTID not in, so that is a good solution here. How do I delete this duplicate record? Can anyone think of a solution here? Krishna Veni already suggested something that I think will work. Okay, so if anyone has a solution, let me know. Now, what happened is I inserted multiple duplicate records, right? So you can see here I have multiple duplicate records, and if I run this subquery where I'm taking only the max of CTID, the max of CTID. Okay, I'll run this query here. So the max of CTID will be only these two, right? But what I want is I want to delete all the like 9, 10, 11, 12, all these four, right? So what I can do is I can just modify this query in a different way. So I'll just tell I will try this. Okay, let's see if this works. So I'll have it here. Okay, and when I run this, I'm getting max. When I run this, I'm getting only those records where there is uh, duplicate records, and only the max of city id is getting fetched. Okay, now since there are multiple duplicate records, I need to find a different way of doing that. Okay, so one way of doing that is what I can say is I can just tell min of CTID. Okay, and I can just tell, instead of having um, okay, so count equal to 1. Okay, let's see what this will be. So I'm getting 1 and 4. Okay, so why am I getting 1 and 4? So I have 1 and 4. No, not this. So if, where did I go? Okay, here. So if I take, okay, so I can do this. So in that case, in this particular case, I don't need to put the having clause, because previously I was using having clause because I wanted to only fetch the records where there are data duplicated. But I have written a subquery here where I only want to fetch the unique records. Okay, so all the unique records from the table. Okay, so I'm just doing a group by. So group by whatever columns are duplicated, if you mention, it is only going to fetch the unique records. And from that unique records, I'm only fetching the minimum of CTID, because there might be certain records in this table who might have multiple records and their CTID might be different, right? It will be different, right? And then, so okay, so I have got this. Now I want to delete any record from the table other than these four records. Okay, because you see here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the initial four records, which is actually proper, right? Anything other than this are duplicated, so I want to delete that. So what I can then do is I can just tell CTID not in these four. Okay, and now if I delete this, now you can see that it's telling delete 4. So 4 records are deleted. If I go back to my table here, you can see that I'm having only the 4 records. Okay, so I'll just mention a comment here saying that if multiple duplicate records, then use below query. Okay, now this query will also work if there are single duplicate record or multiple duplicate record. Okay, but is this clear? Did you understand the difference between these two? Because now you guys are already familiar with subqueries, you are already familiar with basic syntax of SQL queries. So when you look at a query, you should be able to understand what exactly is happening. Until and unless it is too complex, then I understand. But I think these are pretty simple queries, which anyone who is not able to understand the difference between these two queries, anyone? If we want to keep one record which is duplicate, uh, we can do a lot of these modifications. I will tell you a method at the end. Okay, where you can do a lot of different variations, but we'll see that at the end. Okay, now did you understand the solution for this particular question? Any issues with this? Okay, so if no other questions, right? The same thing you can also do in Oracle. The only thing that you need to change in Oracle is, in Oracle, this CTID does not work. Instead of CTID, we have something called as row ID. Okay, so for example, I'll just take this query. Okay, and my Oracle is not working at the moment. Okay, but I'll just put it here. Okay, so in Oracle, everything is the same. You just put row ID here. Okay, something called as row ID. Row ID is kind of like an equivalent to CTID. Okay, of course the value is different. In CTID, you can see the value is a tuple. Okay, in a row ID, I think it's going to have a 20. I think around 20 characters of some. It's going to have some alphanumeric, or I think some alphabets. Okay, but if you're using Oracle, just try to replace CTID with row ID, then everything else is the same. The concept is the same, everything is the same. Okay. Is there anyone who is using Oracle here? Maybe you can try this query and see if that works. Okay. If anyone here is already logged into Oracle, just try out this query and see. It should work, but if it does not work, just let me know. Okay. Uh, I have it running, but I'm using PostgreSQL for. Okay, that is fine. So okay, so now this is in Oracle and in PostgreSQL, but what about MySQL? Okay, because in MySQL, neither CTID is present, nor row ID is present. Okay, and as far as I know, in MySQL, we do not have an alternative for this. There is no such column for a table which is auto created by the database, which has the unique row ID. Okay, is there anyone who is using MySQL and is do you guys Is there anyone who is familiar that there is something alternative to row ID? As far as I know, we do not have. But if there is someone who knows there is something other than row ID, let me know. Okay. But I don't think so. We have something called as row ID in MySQL. Okay. Now let me come back to this database. This is the MySQL I'm using. If you can see, I'm using the MySQL workbench here. Okay. I'll just execute the query, that is select star from artist, and you can see that I'm having the duplicate records here, 6 records here. Now, in MySQL, deleting duplicate records, one of the way of doing that is by using self join. Okay. Now, I'm going to be covering self join in detail little later in maybe this week only, but today I'll not go in detail, but I'll tell you how the query works. Okay. So what I can do is I can just tell delete from artist. I'll give an alias A. Okay. And here I also need to say that I need to delete from the table A, because I'm going to join this table with the same table again. Okay. So I'm just going to say again join with the artist table. This time I'll give an alias, let's say B. Okay. And then I will tell, because my artist table A and B, the names are same, but the IDs are different, right? So when I'm joining the table artist to itself, but when I'm joining, I don't want the same record to join with itself. I want the record 1 to join with record 2, 3, like when it's comparing, right? So your table A, so let's say table A, okay, or maybe the better way of explaining this is Excel file. So let me open an Excel file. You see, I'm getting this error in Oracle. I don't know why, but I'll try to figure it out later. So I'll just open an Excel file just to show you. Okay, so let's say I have table A, okay, and I have table B, okay, and here let's say I have um, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, okay. Okay. When I do a self join, okay, what I want to do is I want this record to join. I don't want this record to join with this, because both the tables are the same, right? Okay, so I'm just giving two different alias A and B, but both are the same table. In this case, both are the artist table. Okay, I don't want the same record to join with itself. I want the record number 1 to join with all the other 5 records. Basically, compare with all the other 5 records and see if there is any matching records based on the name. Okay. And the same thing, when I come to record 2, I want it to skip this particular record but match the other 5 records. Okay. So to do that, what I can mention here is I can just tell a.id greater than b dot id, and I can just tell a dot first name, because I know the duplicate data is based on the first name, is equal to b dot first name, and a dot last name is equal to b dot last name. Okay, so okay, so this is the query. What I have basically done is, we know that when we do a delete from a table, all the data from the table gets deleted. But if we want to delete some only specific records, then I can specify those specific records by using the where clause, right? Uh, but in this case, I have done one additional thing, that is in the delete statement itself, I'm using a join. Okay, and we can do this kind of operation in MySQL. Okay, I'm not sure if this works in other RDBMS. Okay. Uh, but for now, let's only focus on MySQL. This is a solution for people who are using in MySQL. Okay, if you're not using MySQL, then you don't have to bother about this. Okay, what is actually happening is I'm joining the artist table with the same artist table again. I'm giving two different alias. Okay, and I'm telling, when you're doing the comparison between these two tables, do not compare the same column, same record. Okay, so that's why I'm telling, will only check where ID is greater than the ID from the second table. Okay, so this is what will happen. So this first record does not get, will skip this, but it will only compare with these 5 records. And in these 5 records, it's going to compare where the first name is equal to first name and last name equal to last name in between these two tables. Okay, so in this case, what happens is the ID record 1 will compare with all the other 5 records from the second table. Okay, and it will only match those records where the first names are same. or the last names are same. Okay, in this case, you can see here I have this ID. Okay, or let's say if I copy this and if I can put it here, I'm coming like this. So let's ignore that. So this my first artist table will have this. My second artist table also will have this. So this record will the data between these two records will not get matched because I have ID greater than the ID in table 1 greater than ID in table 2. But it will compare the other 5 records. In the other 5 records, it's going to see where the Kate is equal to Kate. So 2 and 5 record will get matched and 3 and 6 record will get matched. Okay. So only these two records will get matched and that is what will get returned. Okay. And now when I run this delete statement, now, when I run this delete statement, you can see that it's telling delete this one, 2 rows are affected. It is successful. And now if I go into my artist table, you can see that the 2 records are deleted. Now only 4 records are remaining. Okay. Now this is one way of deleting duplicate records in MySQL. Okay. Now there is another way which would be more easy. Okay. An easier way. This I would say is a more complex way of deleting record. I will not explain this in detail. The reason because you need to understand self join first before you can understand this, and self join is something that I am going to be taking up later on this week. Okay, probably this week itself we will be covering self join. But this is one way of deleting duplicate records in MySQL. Okay, now there is a more simpler way of deleting duplicate records, which is by using uh, window function. Okay, now I'll show you a method of deleting duplicate records in window function by using window function, and that by using window function you can delete duplicate record in any of the RDBMS. Okay, so let's try to see that first. Okay, or you have any questions? If you have questions about how self join works, I will not answer them now because uh, I will explain it when I come to self join. Okay. Even window function I have not explained, but I will still show you the query. Okay. Because you need to know all the different variations of deleting duplicate records. Okay. And then maybe when you go, then once you understand window function properly and self join properly, you will be able to easily relate to how this query is working. Okay. So let's see using window function. Okay. So using window function, and this is using self join. Okay. So using window function, how we can delete duplicate records is, so I have this artist table. Okay. What I can do is I can just tell, okay, I'll do one thing. I'll write that in PostgreSQL. I think this is more neater here. So using window function, the same query works in all the RDBMS. Okay. So I have my artist table. So I have my artist table. There are 4 records. Okay, let me insert the duplicate records first. Okay, so it is inserted. Now I have 6 records here. Okay, so now what exactly is a window function? In detail, maybe I'll explain later. But basically, there are these are the window functions. These window functions, what they do is, whenever you use a window functions, they will create windows in your table result set. Okay, or basically they create partitions in your result set. Okay, so for example, I have this table here. Okay, and I can just tell row number, okay, over, let's say I'll just do over for now. I'll not mention anything else. Okay, and if I run this, and let's say I'm going to call it like as RN. Okay, and if I run this, what is happening is, you see here, this is my new column that I created using this window function. Row underscore number is one of the window function. There are several other window functions. Row underscore number is one of them. Row underscore number basically is going to provide a unique number for every record. Okay, so you can see here for every record it's providing a unique record, unique value. Okay, so it always starts from 1, so it's going to be 1 2 3 4 up to 5 6. Okay, in this case, but what happened was, I'm using an over clause here. This over clause is a mandatory clause that we need to use when we are using a window function. What this over clause is going to do is, It's going to basically understand, SQL is going to understand that I need to execute this function as a window function. Okay, as part of a window function, SQL is going to create windows or partitions. Okay, so what it will do is creates windows, or sometimes we call it windows, sometimes we call it partitions. Okay, so if I don't provide anything inside my over clause, then it's always going to create just one partition or one window. So all the record from that table is going to be one partition. Okay, or you can call it one window. So I'm going to be interchanging this name window or partition. They both mean the same, don't confuse. Okay, so since I did not provide any specific things inside my over clause, this entire result set will be one window, okay, or one partition. And for that one partition, row number is going to give unique values. Okay, so starting from 1. Okay, so you have 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, but if I want to create multiple partitions within this result set, then I can specify a clause called as partition by. Okay, and I need to give a column name. Okay, based on which column I need to do the partition. So let's say I'm going to provide the column as first name. Okay, so first name. So what happens is when I give the partition by first name, so you can see here for each unique record in that particular column, it's going to create one partition. Okay, so for Thomas, it's going to create one partition. For Kate, it will create one partition. For Natalie, it will create one partition. For Francisco, it's going to create one partition. Again, Kate comes, but for Kate, already a partition is going to is already created, so it's not going to create another partition. So Kate will be under one partition only. Natalie again will be under one partition. So what this means is there are 4 unique names here. So there will be 4 partitions created internally. Okay, and for each partition, SQL is going to execute the row number. Okay, so unique row number is going to be allocated for each partition separately. Okay, so for example, now if I execute this, now you can see that the row number is different, right? So I think the data is not very clear to understand. So just to make it more clear, I'll do an order by here. So I'll say order by, I'll do order by first name. Okay, and I'll now execute this. Now you can see here what is happening is, so first name. Okay, so instead of creating, okay, I think it's clear. So for Francisco, okay, this order is not proper, but anyways, so for Francisco, it's given, it created one partition and the row number given is 1. Then comes Kate. For Kate, it will again create one partition and it has basically given the unique row number 1 again. So previously what happens was, okay, so let's make it one more row here. Okay, so I'll add one more row here, and this time I'll not provide anything inside the over. Okay, so row number little single partition. Okay, and this is row number with partitions. Okay, and now let me execute this. Now you can see here when I ran the row number function, that is a window function, without mentioning anything specific inside the over clause, it did not create a partition. So entire result set was treated as one partition, and it's going to create unique row number considering that whole partition. Okay, whole result set as one partition. But in the second row number here, I have created a partition based on first name. So for every unique record, one partition gets created, and the row number will reset itself as soon as it finds a new partition. Okay, so Francisco, it creates a new partition and the row number is given as 1. For Kate, it's going to create again a new partition and the row number will again start from 1. Okay, but again there is another record with the name Kate. Okay, and here you can see that the row number given is 2. Why? Because already a partition was created for Kate and already a row number 1 was already used, because already there was one record previously. Okay, when it comes to Natalie, again a new partition is created, row number 1 is given. Again there is another record with the same name Natalie. The partition for Natalie was already created, so it's just going to increment the row number. Okay, and then Thomas, again a new partition is created with just row number 1. Okay, internally this is how window function will work. Okay, as soon as you provide a partition by clause, you can provide one column, multiple columns, or anything. For combination of those values, combination of those column values, one partition gets created, and this row number, or instead of row number, any function that you use, that values will get reset for every new partition. Okay, so this is basically what a row number does. Now again, window functions also I will explain in detail when I come to that. Okay, if you do not understand window function, do not bother about that. uh, so I'll now do one thing. I'll give you a solution for this particular problem. So I think once you have understood this, most of you guys would have already guessed what would be the solution for this, right? So I can just tell partition by first name and last name, because I want to consider both the columns here when I'm doing the partition. I will not use order by, because I'm not bothered with the order of data in this particular case, and I'll give the column name as RN. Okay, and when I run this, you can see that I'm getting, wherever there are duplicate records, I'm getting a row number 2 and row number 2 here for Natali and Kate, right? Now what I can do is I can write a subquery. So I can put this entire thing into a subquery. So what I can just tell is, I'll just tell select star from, okay, and I can put this entire thing into the subquery here. Okay, and okay, so that's all. So this entire thing was a query, but I put this entire thing into a subquery just by doing this. So I just told select star from this entire thing. Okay, now if I execute this, the output is still the same. There is no difference between this query and the entire query when it comes to SQL. Okay, even though here I'm using a subquery. Okay, and then outside this subquery, here I can put a filter condition telling that where rn equal to 2. Okay, so, or I can just tell rn greater than 1. Okay, and now if I execute this, I'm getting an error because I need to give an alias here. So I'll give an alias, and now let me run. Now we can see I'm only getting those two records where there were duplicate records, duplicate values, right? And how I got it, because I only fetched those records where the row number was 2, and you saw that only those records where there were duplicate records, they got row number 2. If that particular first name or last name only had one record, then its row number would always be 1. And in my outer query here, I'm only fetching those records where the row number is greater than 1, so the duplicate records are fetched here, right? Once you have got this, then deleting is basically pretty simple, right? So I can just tell uh, delete from artist, where I can just tell id in this one. So here what I'll do is, instead of fetching all the columns, I'll just fetch the id column. I'll move this to the right, and okay, so I'll do this. Okay, so what I have basically done is, from this entire query, I have only fetched the IDs where there are duplicate records, and then I'm doing delete from the table, the artist table, where ID is in these two IDs, right? And now when I delete, you can see the two records are deleted. If I go back to my artist table, you can see that only 4 records are remaining, right? So this is another way of deleting duplicate records. Here I have just used window function, right? So if you're using a database where they don't have CTID or they don't have row ID, then this is one way of, you can auto generate a unique row number for your duplicate records, and then using that row number, you can delete the duplicate records. Okay, now this same query, if I go back to MySQL, okay, so let's go to MySQL. And okay, I do not have duplicate records here. First of all, let me insert the duplicate records. So let me just execute this. Okay, so the duplicate records are inserted. Now if I see, you can see I have 6 records. And now the same function, if I execute here, you can see that delete from this it's basically successful, 2 rows affected. So the same query worked, and now if I execute the artist table, you can see again 4 records are there. Okay, and this query will not only work in PostgreSQL, this query will work in MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, anywhere. Okay, so this would be the most standard way of deleting a record, because it's basically irrespective of the database, because every database supports window functions. So is it clear? I do not want to ask, is it too clear? Because I have not covered window function. So I'm not sure how much you understood. But did you get some understanding about window function? We'll go in depth a little later in probably this week. Not at all clear. Okay. Fine. So, um, okay. If it is not clear, Tim, which database are you using? You're using PostgreSQL, right? Then if you want to delete duplicate records, just use the CTID. Okay. If you're using Oracle, just use uh, what is that, row id. Okay. Window function we will be covering very soon, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 classes, 2 or 3 sessions. Then I think everything, this window functions will be very easy. Okay. Trust me, window function is a very easy concept. Okay. And one, you just need to understand what, how partitions are created or how windows are created. Once you understand that, then everything is very simple. Okay. um, Okay, so this question I see people asking all the time. Explain why you use row number column outside of innermost subquery, how it works. Please explain. Okay, so you see here, I I'll execute just this, the innermost subquery. Okay. In this case, you can call it like a nested SQL statement. Okay. Why? Because I have one subquery here. Okay. Then I have another subquery here. Then this entire thing is my outermost query. Okay. But let's start with the most innermost subquery here, this one. And what I basically did was, let's say if I had commented out this line, if I did not include, and if I just did select star from artist, I would basically get all the columns from this table. Okay. But I wanted to create a unique ID for my column based on the duplicate records present in my table. Okay. For that, I created this row number column and I executed this statement. Okay. Now, many people keep asking, I have seen this question asked even in my YouTube and many other places as well. And many people tell me, why did I filter the data based on row number outside here? Why didn't I do it just here? So why can't I just put a where rn equal greater than 1 here, right? This is the question that you wanted to ask, right? Why am I not doing this, right? If you are having this question, and let's say if I execute this, it's not going to work. Okay. Can you tell me why will this not work? Anyone? What in clause? Select happens after where? Right? Okay. Order of execution, right? Okay. You can consider order of execution, but there is a bigger issue here. There is a very uh, there is an issue that SQL is not able to fix. Okay, the scope outside. Okay, the reason why this will not work is because you see here I'm using this column RN, right? Whenever I'm executing any data from a table, when I put filter condition, whether the where clause or on condition or whatever, I can only access the columns which are already present in the tables that I have used in my from clause, right? In this particular case, in the artist table, I only have 3 columns. I have ID, first name, and last name. I do not have a column called as RN. So when I do this where RN greater than 1, Oracle or this SQL is basically going to the artist table and it's going to find a column RN. It's not going to find that column because there is no column RN in that table, right? Because this RN is something that I manually created in my select clause. In my select clause, I can create any number of column. I can tell that, yeah, this is my something like this. I can call it like XX, okay, and 2 I can call it like YY. So I can create any number of columns like this. So if I execute this, um, what did I execute? YY does not exist. Okay, so not comma here now. So if I execute this, this is going to work fine, right? Even though my from my artist table I have 3 columns, but I can create any number of columns. So that is why many times people create columns using case statement or hard code a value here like this or something like that, right? But these are all the columns which I have created. These columns are not present in the table, right? So when I do a filter condition, if I try to filter condition based on any column that is not present in the table, it's going to throw an error. As simple as that. Okay. That is why what I do is, first I put this entire thing into another subquery. Okay. So I do a select star from this entire thing. Okay. I move this to the right. Okay. By this, what happens is, since I put this entire subquery inside the from clause, internally SQL is going to treat it like a replica of a table. Okay, it's not actually a table, but a replica of a table. Whatever is going to get returned from this subquery will be its own result set. It can be treated like a table. Okay, so now when I execute this, okay, I need to give an alias. When I execute this, I will get some data, right? So in this particular case, this X is my table, right? So this X is my table, and this X has 4 columns. So it has ID, first name, last name, and RN. And then I can do a filter on RN. Okay, only then it will work. Okay, so is this clear? Why you cannot use RN after this? You have to use this RN, or basically filter on the row number outside your subquery. Okay, because only the columns which are present in the table you can use in the where clause. Otherwise, from where will SQL find that column, right? Okay, so I'm sure there are people who have not understood window function, and that is how it should be, because I have not covered window function. But for this particular problem, I wanted to explain. We are already covered. We have taken too much of time today in this particular problem itself. So I'm just going to move ahead. Okay. So this is fine. I think, where was that? Okay, so this was the delete statement. I will just okay. So this is just explanation, right? For why we cannot use RN inside subquery. Okay, so this is using the window function. Now, I want to explain you one more method of deleting duplicate records, and that is one of the most simplest of ways of deleting records. Now, let's say you are working on a project and you are having a table where there are, let's say it is having 1 million records. Okay, and out of 1 million records, there are 100 records which are duplicated. Okay, now if you try to delete, use a delete statement, generally it's going to take a lot of time. Okay, the reason why it's going to take a lot of time is because, as I told you previously, okay, so let's say you have 1 million records and you want to delete 10,000 records in that, because there are 10,000 duplicate records. If you try to run a delete statement which is going to delete 10,000 records from a table having 1 million records, it's going to take a lot of time, and that is not the best way of doing it. Okay, and the reason why it's going to take a lot of time is because delete will delete one record at a time. The faster way of deleting is by using truncate. But if I use truncate, all the 1 million records will get truncated. But I only want to delete that 10,000 duplicated records, right? How can I do that? What is an alternative way? So I'll write the scenario here. You have, imagine a table with 1 million records and 10k duplicate records. Okay. How to delete faster, right? So an alternative way to delete this kind of huge data is you create a backup table for your main table, and then you delete the data from the main table and then load the main table with this backup table. Okay, so this is just an alternate approach. I have done it several times. My team does it several times when we are working on large amount of data, and we generally do not drop a table, because if we drop a table and if that table is being used by some other application, then it might crash the system. Okay, in that case, better we don't drop a table, but we create a backup table. So for example, let's say in this case, so I'm going to recreate these duplicate records here. Okay, and let's say I'm going to have select star from artist, and I have 6 records here, right? So I need to delete duplicate records. So what I can do is, or I'm going to do a slight modification here. Okay, so let me delete this duplicate record, because this is the question that someone asked me, if every record is duplicated. So for example, when I'm inserting this record, right, I'll do one thing. Okay, so okay, so I'll insert record, but I'll give the same ID. So what was the ID for those Kate and Natali? 3 and 2 and 3. So 2 and 3, right? And I'll execute this, and now let me go here, and now you can see here, uh, not only the first name, last name, even the ID column is duplicated, right? So 2 3 2 3, and everything is duplicated. Okay, in this case, this method that I'm going to explain will still work. Okay, so what we can do is, first of all, let's create a backup table with the proper data. So when I say proper data, if I do a select star from artist, you can see I'm getting 6 records, right? But let's say if I do select distinct of star from artist, now I'm getting only 4 records, right? This is the data that I want at the end, right? So what I can do is I'll use this data here. So I'll just tell create table artists underscore bkp backup as, I'll say this one. Okay, so this query is going to return me 4 records, and this statement here is going to create the table with whatever records are given mentioned here, right? Now I'm going to create this table, so it's created with 4 records hopefully. So now let's say if I run this artist underscore backup, and you can see here now my artist underscore backup has 4 records. Okay, whereas my artist table has 6 records, right? This has 6 records, this has 4 records. Now what I can do is I can do a truncate table artist. Okay, and the data is now deleted. Okay, and then I can do an insert into uh, artist. Okay, and I think we can do this way. So I can just tell select star from this. Let's see if this syntax works. Okay, this syntax works. Just try out if in other RDBMS this syntax works or not. Okay, uh, I think it should work in every database. But now if I look at my artist table, you can see that I only have the unique records. Okay, and after this I can come back here and I can drop the backup table. So I can come back here and I can drop this table. Okay, so this is an alternate way of removing duplicate records, and because several times, right, if there are no unique IDs in your table and every record is duplicated, and if you're having a lot of data to get deleted, okay, in that case this would be a better way of doing it. Okay, now there is another way of doing it. Okay, almost the same approach. Okay, but instead of using insert, because you might also ask, like delete is slower because it's a DML operation, insert is also a DML operation, it might also be slower, right? In that case, an alternate way of doing this would be something like this. So I have already deleted the duplicate record, right? So I'll just tell option 1. Okay, and I'll give you a second option here. So option 2. Okay, in option 2 we'll almost do the same thing. So I'll just copy this. Okay, I'll insert these 2 records, and then I have, so then I have 6 records here. Then okay, this table does not exist here when I'm creating the table. So I'll go back for my option 2. Okay, and I'll say this is my option 1. Okay, so I'll go back here. Okay, and I'm going to create the backup table. So my backup table is created. Okay, now my backup table will have the 4 records that I want. Okay, and then here what I will do is I'll just say drop table. I'll drop the actual table. Okay, all this will not work in your production environment, but when you're doing data analysis in your local system or in your development environment, you can do all of this. Okay, so I dropped this table, and then what I can do is I can just rename the backup table to the actual table name. So I can just tell alter this, alter table name, table name, rename to the actual table name. Okay, now if I run this, the table is altered, and now I don't even have to drop the backup table because the backup table is now renamed to the actual table name. Now if I run this, you can see that I have the 4 records in my artist table and the backup table does not exist. Okay, so this is option 2. Okay, I will also tell not recommended, not recommended in production or dev environment if used by other people, if table is used by other people. Okay, now these both methods, in fact especially this method, is a much faster way of deleting, let's say, and this can be a question for your interview as well. In the interview people might ask you, let's say I want to delete 10,000 records from a table having million records, okay, which is a faster way of deleting. If you tell delete statement, they will not be very happy. The alternate way of deleting multiple records is this way. So you create a backup table with, maybe you take the distinct of the actual data, or the backup table should have the correct number of records. Okay, you can do distinct for that, or you can do group by or whatever. Okay, once you have the backup table, drop the actual table and then rename the backup table into the actual table. In that case, they might cross question you, telling that, hey, why do you want to drop the table? Because this table might be used by some of our user like applications. If you drop a table, our entire application might crash, right? We would not want to drop the table. In that case, you can tell that, okay, you don't have to drop it, but you can do an insert here. Okay, and then you can do the insert not one record at a time, but you can do an insert using the select statement, which will still be faster. Okay, because all the records will get fetched from this select statement at once, and everything gets inserted at once. Okay, so these are the two alternate ways of deleting, and this will work in any RDBMS. Okay, so we have seen several different ways of deleting duplicate records. Is it all clear? I know you will have a lot of questions. I actually wanted to cover many other concepts today, but we already spent more than 1 hour on this. Okay, but it's okay. But is it clear? Any questions? If you have questions about how window function works, how self join works, don't worry about that. I will be talking about that in detail with proper data sets in the future. Okay, but I hope you saw how many different variations have we seen today. So we saw one way by CTID, row ID, self join, window function, and then these faster way of deleting. So I think we saw 5 different ways of deleting data. I hope it is clear. Okay. Um, table is parent, then you are using delete cascade. Okay, so fine. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, I'm going to finish this here. So I'll just copy this. I'll put it in my notes. Okay, 1 minute. I'll create a notes file for today. So this is session 10. Okay, this MySQL query. Okay, fine. Okay, so now let's come back. Now let's take a new concept. Okay, so I'm going to open a new session here. Let's go to our next concept. And the next concept I want to cover is joins. Okay, now we have seen inner join. Okay, everyone I think is aware of that. Pretty simple, right? But there are many other type of joins. Can you tell me what are the different type of joins that you are aware of? Okay, I think one of the joins no one has mentioned yet. Self out, right, everything is fine. Outer, okay. Natural, okay, fine. Cross, okay. Okay, fine. So natural join, right? So we have seen the first join type of join we saw was inner join. Okay, and inner join can also be mentioned as join, because this inner is an optional keyword. Okay, same way we have 3 types of outer join. So this is inner join, right? And there are 3 types of outer join. So we have left outer join, okay, right outer join, okay, and both this, so I can also call this like join, and this can be represented like left join, okay, and this can be represented like right join. Okay, what this means is this inner keyword is optional, outer keyword is also optional. So if you see a query where they have mentioned left outer join, and if you see a query they have mentioned left join, they both are the same. Okay, and then we have something called as full outer join, okay, which can also be called as full join, okay. Then we have something called as natural join, okay, and then we have something called as cross join, right? So 1 2 3 4 5 6, okay. So I think these are the six type of join. Okay, then there is one more last thing is self join, okay. So the last one. So uh, I'll not be covering lateral join, okay, and all that. But in most RDBMS, these are the different type of joints that we have, okay. So now let's start, okay. I don't think so. I'll be able to cover all of this. Okay, self join. Anyways, I was going to be covering in future, but I wanted to cover these joints in today's class. But I don't think so. I'll be able to cover. Okay, so I'm going to start with first. I'll give you a simple introduction to what these joints are. Okay, now can you tell me in one word? Can anyone tell me what is inner join? What does inner join do? I know you all know how it works, but if you go to an interview and tell someone asks you what is an inner join in the most simplest of terms, in one sentence, if you have to explain what is inner join, what does inner join do? Uh, Inner equijoin is not equal to inner join. Okay, equijoin is a different. Equijoin and non-equijoin are two different things. A non-equijoin can also be an inner join. Okay, maybe I will cover that. I will be covering that little in the future. Okay, so match all record, match values in both the tables, matching records between two tables, returns only the matching. Okay, correct. Kashish, um, when you do an inner join, the data that is going to get returned is only the matching records. Okay, so inner join will only return the matching records in both your tables, right? So if I have to write here, so inner join, okay, I can just tell returns matching records, okay, from both the tables. Of course, that is self-explanatory, right? But I'll just keep it like this, okay. Now, what is left join? Okay, so inner join is returns matching records. What does left join do? Okay, in the most simplest of terms, left join first will do an inner join. Then additionally, it will go to the leftmost table and it will see if there is any additional records in the leftmost table which was not part of the inner join, and even those records will get matched. Okay, so what I can just tell is left join will do inner join plus uh, returns records present only in left table. Okay, so this is kind of like the formula for left join. If you remember this formula in any query that you have in future, you will be able to understand. Okay, so left join will always return all the matching records. So it's like it's going to do an inner join internally. It's going to do an inner join first. Once it does an inner join, then it will additionally do one more thing, and that one more thing is it will go to the leftmost table and it will see what are the additional records in your leftmost table, and if it finds any additional records in your leftmost table which is not returned in your inner join, okay, then it will return that data. Okay, so that is what inner left join is. What is right join? So right join is basically, again, it's going to do an inner join. Okay, again it's the same. Okay, so first thing right join will do is it's going to do an inner join, so all the matching records are returned. Then it will return, it returns records present only in right table. Okay, so the exact opposite of left join. So right join will again do an inner join, so all the matching records are fetched first. That is the first thing that it will do. Additionally, it will again go back to the rightmost table in this case, and from the rightmost table it will see if there are any records that is not fetched in the inner join. Okay, if it is not fetched in the inner join, then those records will get returned. Okay, and how does it know which records is present only in the left table or which record is present only in the right table? Okay, and this is based on the join condition. Okay, so this is an important thing. Okay, so whether the record is present in the left table only or whether there are records present in the left table which is not present in the right table, all this identification happens based on what you have mentioned in your join condition. So what you present when you join the tables in the on clause, what you give, that is what gets returned. That is what your join condition is, and based on that join condition, all this data returning will happen. Okay. Now this is the formula. You will better understand this when I'm going to show you an example. Okay, but this formula we will be reusing it a little later. Okay, so then we have full join. Okay, now this full join basically, what does, okay, can anyone guess? You have understood the formula for these three. Can anyone guess what would be the formula for full join in this particular, in this manner? Can anyone tell me what would be the formula for full join? Anyone? Okay, so bio says it brings all records and ignores matching records. Inner plus all records. Full inner plus left plus right. Okay. Okay, so Supriya gives the right answer here. Inner plus left plus right. So basically what it does is it will do an inner join first, plus it will do a left join, okay, plus it will do a right join. Okay, this is what full join is in the most simplest of terms. Okay, this is a formula. Okay, so your full join will first go and fetch all the matching records. Then it will go and see in the leftmost table, are there any records which is only present in the leftmost table which was not part of the inner join? If there are, then those records will get written. Additionally, it will again go to the rightmost table and it will see, are there any tables in the rightmost table which is not present in the leftmost table? If there are, then all those records from the rightmost table will also get written. Okay, so this is what the formula is. Okay, for all these four type of joins. Now the other type of joins maybe we will see tomorrow, but let's see this with an example. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new data set for this joint. Okay, I'm going to be using the same painting data set, but I'm just going to have some additional data loaded into that. Okay, um, okay, so I have this data set. So what I'm going to do is I just pasted this data set here. Okay, and I'll just run this entire query. So I just dropped and created everything. So I just dropped the tables and created it again with some modification in the data. Okay, now I'll just say new painting data set for joins. Okay, so now what I have done is, if you look at my paintings table, previously I think in my paintings table I had 8 records, if I'm not wrong. Now you can see that I added 2 more paintings. So I added sunset and I added sea front, and they belong to the artist 10 and 11 and some other information. Okay, and in the artist table I added 2 more artists. Previously we only had these 4: Thomas, Kate, Natalia and Francisco. Now I added Nicholas and Perry. Okay, these 2 additional artists. Okay, then in the collectors table I think we still have 4 records. And then in sales table, I have these 6 records only. I think it's the same. Okay. Okay. So this is fine. Now I'm going to explain one of these joins, but with an example. Okay. So let's take one example. So I'll just copy a query. Okay. So let's say I have a requirement. Okay. Something like this. Okay. Can everyone see this? Okay, so let's say you have been asked to write a query to basically to do this. So if anyone wants to write the query, you can write it and share it with me. Fetch names of all the artists along with their painting names. Okay, if an artist does not have a painting yet, display as NA. Okay, so let's try to understand this question. So they're telling fetch the names of all the artists. So first of all, I need to fetch the names of all the artists. This is my output. Okay, so I need to use the artist table along with their painting name. Oh, okay. So not only the artist, but I also need to print the painting name. So I also need to print the painting name. So looks like I will need to fetch the data both from paintings table as well as from the artist table, right? So first of all, let's straight away write that. So I'm just going to say select from, and I know from first I need to use my artist. Okay. So artist, okay, yeah. And then I need to join it with the paintings table. paintings P. And how do I join these two tables? So I have P dot artist ID equal to A dot ID, right? So this is how I can join, and I only want to display their name, right? Okay, so I think someone asked, how do you combine two names together? I think in the group. So I'm just going to use the concat function here. So concat A dot first name, comma, I'll leave a space and I'll say A dot last name, okay, as name, okay, as I'll tell artist name, okay. So this is my artist name, and then I also want to print the painting name, right? So my painting name is present in my paintings table, and it's having the column name itself. So I can say p dot name as painting name, right? So I'll just move this to the next line, okay? And now I'll just run this. So I am getting some data. So you can see here, I'm getting, looks like Thomas Black owns the painting Miracle. Thomas Black also has done Sunshine. Kate Smith has done Pretty Woman. Kate Smith has again done Handsome Man. Natalie Wen has done Barbie. Natalie Wen has done Cool Painting. And Natalie Wen has also done Black Square number 1000. Francisco has done Mountain. So each of these artists has done some painting, and we can see that, right? But if you look carefully the question, they're telling fetch the names of all the artists along with their painting names. If your question only had this much, then this query would be enough, this output would be fine. But additionally, in our question, they have given one more thing, that is, if an artist does not have a painting yet, okay, if there are any artists who have not done any painting yet, then we need to display their name yet, but under their name we need to display like NA, meaning that not available, okay, or they have not done the painting yet, okay. Now look, if you look at the artists, you can see here I have Thomas Black, Kate Smith, Natalie Wen, and Francisco. So there are 4 artists, right? But if I go into my artist table, you can see that Thomas, Kate, Natalie, Francisco, but I have 2 additional painters or artists here, right? I have Nicholas and Perry. But my query here is not basically fetching Nicholas and Perry, right? Why is it not fetching is because I'm using an inner join here. So I mentioned join. This is same as inner join. Now, what does inner join do? Inner join will only fetch matching records, right? So this artist Nicholas and Perry, who are having the ID 5 and 6. Okay, if I go into my paintings table, you can see here my artist ID. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and 11. I do not have 5 and 6 here. Okay, so meaning that the artist 5 and 6, the artist with the ID 5 and 6 are not present in my paintings table, and inner join will only match records, will only return records which are matching in both the table. So matching in both the table is only 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Even 10 and 11 is only present in the painting table but not present in the artist table, right? So only the matching records are getting returned, and that is why, let's say if I do here a dot id, okay, just for displaying purpose, and if I run this, you can see that I am only getting the id with 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so in the artist table I also have the id 5 and 6, which is not actually getting returned here. Now how do I modify the query such that even the artists who are not present in the painting table will still get returned, right? Because that is what it means, right? If an artist has not done any painting, then he will not have any record in the painting table, right? So I need to fetch the records which are only present in my artist table but is not present in the paintings table, meaning that if you look here, another way of writing this query is by putting this everything into the single line, right? When I put everything into the single line, this is my join clause, this is my left table, this is my right table, right? So since I'm doing an inner join, it does not matter whether I have a table, what table I have on the left and what table I have on the right, because only the matching records will get returned. But in this particular case, I want to do a special kind of a join. I want to match the matching records, plus I want to match any records which is only present in the leftmost table, right? In that case, I can do something called as a left join. Okay, what left join will do is, of course, it's going to return all these records first. All the matching records will get returned, right? Additionally, it will go into the leftmost table, that is my artist table in this case. And in the leftmost table, it's going to find that there is artist with ID 5 and 6, which belongs to Nicholas and Perry, and those 2 records will also get returned. So hopefully, I should get 10 records plus 2 records, 12 records. Okay, and for those 2 records, they would basically not have any painting, but that we will handle later. Okay, now if I run this, the only change I did was from join, I changed it to left join, and now when I run it, I'm getting 10 records only. So previously, how much did I get with inner join? Did I get 10 records or 8 records? So let's do one thing. I'm going to have inner join here. Okay, and now let me run this. Okay, so previously I got 8 records. I don't know how, why was it showing 10? Okay, anyways, so when I did an inner join, you saw that I got 8 records. Okay, so these were the 8 matching records, right? And now only thing I changed was I put a left join here. Now 8 plus 2, 2 additional records got fetched because internally left join first did the inner join, so it fetched these 8 records. Once it was done with that, then it goes to the leftmost table. It will fetch the 2 records which are only present in the left table. That is, in this case, which table you mention on the left side and which table you mention on the right side is very, very important. Okay, because the entire meaning of your query will change if you interchange this. Okay, so in this particular case, Nicholas and Perry are the 2 artists who do not have any painting. That is why they are only present in the artist table, but none of their matching IDs are present in the paintings table, right? That is fine. But in the painting's name, I'm getting null. But what I have been asked is, if artist does not have any painting, I need to display as NA. So how can I do that? Anyone? Use case statement to display NA. Correct. So what I can do is, here I can just tell case when p okay, so case when this one is okay, 1 minute. Yeah, so when this one is null, then NA, okay, else p dot name, okay, and end. Okay, I put everything into the single line. You can make it more clear, you can put it in the next line. Okay, so that's all. And now if I run this, now I'm getting NA here. So wherever there is no painting for an artist, it will display like NA. Wherever there is a painting, it will display whatever the painting name is from the painting table. Okay, now I hope this is clear. Okay, here the most important thing that you need to remember is, whenever you're using a left join or a right join, okay, the table that you mention on the left and the right side of your joints is very, very important. Okay, so in this particular case, I have mentioned artist in the left, so this becomes my left table, and I have mentioned painting on the right, so this becomes my right table. Okay, so this is the only way to determine which table is on the left and which table is on the right. Okay, now let's say I'm getting this data. I will execute the same query again, but in this case, I'll just put the artist A. I'll put it here, and I'll put this painting table here. Okay, now if I execute this, can anyone tell me, will it work? First question. Okay, so it is going to throw an error. Okay, second question, if it's going to work, will the output be same or different? Anyone? Okay, I will come to this if null is null thing, okay, little later. Okay, works but different results. So let me execute this. You can see here I'm still getting 10 records, but the result is completely different. The data from the inner join, that 8 record, is still the same, right? But what happened was, it's returning me the leftmost, any record that is present in the leftmost table that is not present in the inner join. That is, it's going to see in the paintings table, I have 2 paintings, which is sunset and seafront, which belongs to artists who are not present in the artist table. Okay, so that is why mentioning tables, mentioning tables in the left of join and the right of join clause matters. Okay, so below returns wrong data. Okay, now I hope this is clear. I'm just going to end this class by talking about one last thing, and that is, I have used a case statement here. Okay, but I can also do the same thing without using a case statement. So for example, I'll just create a, okay, maybe I'll not modify this query, I'll create another query here. Okay, so like many people are suggesting here, why can't you use if null or is null? The thing is, this is null, I don't know what exactly that clause is null or if null. I think this only works in MySQL. It does not work in PostgreSQL. In PostgreSQL, what we can do is, I can just tell p dot name, right, as painting name, right? What I can do is I can use, I think we can use callis, right? So we have something called as callis function. Okay, let's see if this works. So in callis, let's see if, I'm not sure if this, because NA, okay, so this also works. Okay, so because previously I thought only integer we can pass, but since this is a varchar, I can pass a varchar as second argument. Okay, um, so you can either use a case statement or I can use a function here. Okay, this function is a null function. Like whenever you want to replace a null value with some other value, then we can use callis. Now, an alternative to using callis is so alternate alternate functions for callis in other RDBMS is okay. So in Oracle, it is, I think, NVL. Okay, or I think you can use NVL2. Okay, and you can also use callis. So I think callis works in all the RDBMS, if I am not wrong, probably. Okay, in all the RDBMS, callis should work. Okay, and then I think in MySQL you can just use, is it is null or if null? Because, okay, let's do one thing. Okay, so I'll just go back to MySQL. I'm not familiar with the function that is used in MySQL. Okay, so callis is working in MySQL as well. Okay, because its callis works in every RDBMS. Okay, it's supported in every RDBMS. Here I do not have that duplicate data. That's why I'm not getting those. The records are not the same. But instead of callis, what is the other function? Is null, is it? So is it is null or if null? Or is it? I don't know the syntax of that. Maybe I will be covering that separately when I'm going to cover the functions. Okay, so if null. Okay, so in MySQL, if null works. So basically, it does the same thing that a callis does. Okay, so the syntax is also the same. So if null. Okay, and in my Microsoft SQL Server, you can just use MS SQL. You can just use the same thing, that is callis. Okay. Um, okay, so that's all I have for today. Any questions? I've not seen the Q&A. I'm just going to look at the Q&A for the next 5 minutes. Okay. And let's see if there are any questions. I'll just copy everything and I'll put it into the notes file first. Okay, so let's look at some questions. What if there are 3 duplicate? Okay, already answered. If there are 3 people named Kate, okay, already for max, is it taking max for all duplicate files? Yes, it's taking the max of ID for all records. Once more, uh, which one, Sandeep? Can you use CTE to delete duplicate? Yes, you can use CTE to delete duplicate. You can use CTE in any case. Wherever you're using a subquery, you can use a CTE. Okay, if you are using, but I'll cover CTE in the future class, probably tomorrow. So if you are using ID column to delete then directly without using window function, we can solve it. Yes, you can solve it. So I showed you 5 different ways of deleting duplicate records. You don't need 5 different methods. You just need one method. I just showed you different variations. And if there are no unique ID columns, then you may need to use a different method. If you're using Oracle or PostgreSQL, you may need to use different method. But generally, the window function method that I showed will work everywhere. Okay, so for my MS SQL, should we use? Yes, for MS SQL, you can use window function. One input from my side. If we have agenda of each session along with recording, it will be easy for us to go through any selected recording when in need rather than searching. So you want to, Prashant, what you want to say is for each session, what concept was covered, right? I don't know. See, can you put this remark in the Telegram group so Sarush is aware? Because Maybe they can add some column under each recording. They can add some, I don't know, some comment or something telling that, and then under that recording I can add a comment that in this particular recording we have covered this concept. Okay. um, Maybe you can tell this point in the Telegram group, okay, so that who is that, Sorush can implement a feature like that. uh, Please describe delete records while having foreign key relations, or parent and child relationship, how it works. Okay, so the concept is self-explanatory, Ram. If I told you, right, when I was explaining you foreign key, if you want to delete a data from a parent table, okay, so let's say you have a parent child table, okay, and you want to delete data from a parent table, and if that data is present in the child table, you will need to first delete the child table. First you delete the child table, only then SQL is going to allow you to delete from the parent table. Okay, you try it on your own, Ram. It's not very complicated. The syntax, the concept, everything is the same. Only error that you will get is, so let's say when I was deleting the artist table, let's say I had another table called as artist child. Okay, and if that artist ID was used in this artist child table and they had a foreign key there, then I would, this delete would not succeed. In that case, first I had to go to the artist child table, delete the data from the artist child table, then I come to the artist table and then delete from the artist table. Okay, so whatever I told now, right, try to implement it on your own. Okay, it's very simple. Create an artist child table, say have the same IDs, then you try to do this delete. It's not going to work. Okay, because whenever you have a foreign key constraint, first delete the child table, only then the master table you can delete. Okay. um, Self right self okay, does exist a join that returns non-matching? Does exist a join that returns non-matching? Does exist a join that returns, I did not understand this question, Raimundo. What do you mean? You mentioned full join, inner join, left join, right join. It is not correct, because inner join is then duplicated two extra times. Okay, okay. So uh, okay, Akhil, I'll tell you one thing. If you go to, as far as I know, if you go to any RDBMS ka documentation, PostgreSQL or any other, you will not find this formula. This formula is my own formula. I have never seen anyone use this formula or explain joins in this manner. This is just my way of explaining. Okay, so this is not something that is given in the documentation. Okay, what you need to understand is, when I'm telling left join, right join, and this one, it does not mean that the same records will get repeated. Okay, only unique records will get. So once the inner join has already happened here, again that, so let's say you got 8 records from the inner join here, again that 8 record from the inner join will not get returned here. Okay, so it's basically going to return you only the unique records. Okay, this is just for your explanation, understanding that all the matching records will get returned, all the records which are only present in the leftmost table will get returned, and then all the records which is present only in the rightmost table will get returned. Okay, so when I explain full order join, with the example, that time you will better understand this. Okay, so can all questions which I have already solved subquery at correlated subquery. So do I use subquery to one question mean if I solve question or subquery, can I also solve the correlated subquery? Which scenario do I use correlated subquery, which is not? So let us understand. So if I all subquery solve questions, also solve at correlated subquery. Okay, so Adil Fita, this question, right, I have already okay, your name I pronounced wrong, sorry for that. Abdi Fita. Okay, uh, the answer to your question, I think I have already given in the previous class. I will be covering all these concepts. I will be solving a lot of SQL queries, but if you do not practice on your own, I don't think so you will be completely confident with SQL. I cannot sit with everyone individually and ask you to solve 500 SQL queries, right? Basically there is no time for that. Okay, that is why I tell you, go to Stata Scratch, go to Lead Code, take the questions from there. Also, you have many questions on my YouTube videos itself. Okay, I will be solving questions, many questions myself. I will be giving you some assignments as well. The answer to your question is very simple. When you solve more problems, you will realize when you should use a certain concept. Okay, there is no hard fact in any RDBMS documentation that as soon as you find a data with this, you need to use correlated subquery. As soon as you find this, you need to use a scalar subquery. As soon as you find this, you need to use CT. As soon as you find this, you need to use self join. Nowhere you will find a documentation like this. You know why you will not find a documentation like this? Because
A particular problem can be solved in so many different ways. The same query can be solved in correlated subquery, same query can be solved in joins, same query solved in can be solved in CT, etc., etc. Okay, so there is no hard rule for that. The only way you will know about this is when you practice, when you solve a lot of questions yourself, when you go to lead code, stata scratch, and practice SQL queries, you will realize which is a better way of doing that. And it's always better that you solve a problem in multiple different ways, because you will understand multiple different ways of solving a problem. And then when you solve the same, when you come across similar problem again, you will know out of that multiple problems, multiple solutions, which was easier for you to solve and which was better. You will understand it yourself. Okay, so there's no hard rule what you should use and when you should use. Okay, internal mechanism of joints. What do you mean? I already explained um, how joints happens, but I have not covered all the joints. When I cover all these type of joints, I think you will you will I'll give you more information of how SQL executes all these joint statements. Can you please attach all the assignments in the additional content? I'm unable to find it here. um, in my previous course, when I did, right, I had these assignments in a separate Excel file. Okay, but it went on to become confusing. That is why I just have one file for one session. Okay, and that one file will have all the things that are covered in the class, as well as the assignment. Always the assignment will be at the end of the file. I think that is more cleaner. Maybe at the end I will come up with one, because I'm actually preparing some list of 10 to 20 SQL queries. I'm taking it from lead code and stata scratch. I'm taking those queries which with all the concept that you have learned, you will be able to solve it. Maybe for those kind of assignments, I'll try to come up with a separate file. Okay, but for now I'll try to keep everything in a notes file as well. Maybe for assignments, if you want a separate file with all the assignments from all the sessions, I'll try to do it a little later. Okay, can you please attach non-matching records like anti-inner join, one join that return record that are not in the left and not in the right join? Okay, so non-matching records, Raimundo, non-matching records like anti-inner join, one join that. What is anti-inner join? So what was your initial question, Raimundo? Uh, does exist a join that returns non-match? Okay, now I understand your question. So you want to know if there is a join which returns non-matching records. um, there is I no, there are no such joins. Okay, but of course you can write queries to do that. Okay, you can write SQL queries to only return non-matching records. We can do that, but there are no as far as I know, these are the only type of joints. Now some people might argue that what about ANSI join, non-ANSI join, lateral join? They're all not joints as such. Okay, these are the actual joints. Okay, that is supported in every RDBMS. Okay, then maybe some RDBMS might come up with something strange, but these are the all type of joints we have. Okay. um, okay, so I think that's all for today's class. I'm going to end the class now. um, I hope you learned something. We covered a lot of this delete statement, and we covered these joints. There are still a lot to cover in joints. We'll cover it tomorrow. Okay. We can't use alias in where and having clause. Is that the statement right? But we can use in group by. We can't use alias in where and having. Yeah, the statement is right. This particular statement, right, Shiva? Using alias. Okay. The thing is, different RDBMS have different rules. Okay, depending on what your RDBMS you're using, you try to test it out. Because as far as I know, in PostgreSQL we can use alias in group by and in order by clause, but I don't think so it is allowed in all the RDBMS. Okay, so and definitely in where clause I don't think so alias is allowed. Okay. uh, yeah, so you just try it out. You can just write a query and see if it works or not. Okay. But generally in PostgreSQL, group by and order by, you can use alias. Everywhere else, you use the column name. Session 4. I think we covered merge in session 4. In MySQL subquery, we use alias. In MySQL subquery, we use alias. Okay, not sure what this means. Okay, fine. So that's all, guys. I'm going to end the class. I'll stop the recording and I'll stop the recording now.